right, guys, we're going to get started with the presentation. Can you guys see that? Okay. What we will cover, guys, the whole idea of this presentation is to help you with I mean, you guys had asked for it, but to help you with your recognition of investors and to kind of protect your resources, your time and your gas and all your other resources that you guys have. And I attached the investor questionnaire. If any of you guys reviewed that, I attached that. And it kind of, we're going to kind of go through it here and explain what we're really looking for. But I want to give you guys a basic of 101 of investment properties, how they're evaluated, and how to evaluate an investor. So we're going to cover the properties first, and we'll talk about the investors as we go. What we will cover today, the terms that you need to know with investment properties, how to determine the value of an investment property, rates of return for cash and leveraged properties, how to determine the best way to buy an investment and commercial investments and the effect on end users. So a lot of this stuff, guys, you're going to have people come to you and they want to take, they've got $100,000 and they want to invest it and get the most they can out of it, or they've got 500,000 or $1 million or whatever they have. Some of them have $20,000 and they want to, they want to see if they can flip properties or do whatever. And so we're going to talk about a little bit about all that. Let me go to the next page. It's not working. That's great. I'll just do it like this. Okay, why invest in real estate? With so many options available, why do people invest in real estate? We'll talk about volatility, appreciation, intrinsic value, status. Why do you guys think people invest in real estate?
I mean, some people do it for the passive cash flow.
Right.
Some people do it for just a way to just kind of tie up the net worth and have it in something that appreciates in value over the long term.
Okay. So they're looking for a rate of return, some return on their cash, and they're looking for something that can appreciate over time. And I think when we talk about, go ahead, Javier.
One of the things that I see when it's an international investor, they're trying to move their money from their currency to a US dollar to secure their investment, besides the cash flow and other different things that are important for them, for any investor. But in the case of the international people, they're trying to move their capital to the United States in dollars in a real estate property that give them security because of the devaluation of the currency.
Right. So they want stability, and they want to invest in something they know will always have some kind of value. That's an intrinsic value. It'll always have some kind of worth because it's a real thing, right? As opposed to a stock or something a company could go under, or real estate will always be there. Some people do it, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. Some people do it for emotional, psychological reasons. They want to be a quote unquote investor. They want to kind of, it's a status thing. You guys have all had that. And what I picture when I talk to you guys about this stuff, and I've heard you guys say, yeah, I was out to dinner and somebody came up to me and we were talking about what I do, and he says he's an investor, and I want to find these properties for him. I've sat down with you guys who are looking for properties for somebody, and you have no idea what they want. And they don't, and most of the time it's because they don't know what they want. They don't have a set list of criteria because they're at that point at the beginning of this, and we're going to learn how to guide them through it. But they've got $50,000, they've got $100,000. They want to put it into something, and they don't have any idea what to do. A lot of them don't know they can borrow or if they should borrow or whatever, and everybody's circumstances are different. Okay, capitalization rate. So a cap rate is a rate of return on investment property based on the income that the property is expected to generate. It is calculated by dividing the investment's net operating income by the current market value. There's going to be some math on this in a minute, but the cap rate is just the simple rate of return for the investment property. So if you pay $120,000 for a piece of property that brings in $12,000 a year, nets $12,000 a year, the net operating income is $12,000 a year, then that, guys, is a 10% return. Okay, you paid 120, it brings in 12. That's a 10% cap rate. That's just a very basic one, but we'll get into a little more detail. Net operating income, all the revenue generated, or all the revenue from the property minus all reasonably necessary operating expenses. Does not include debt service. So if you guys get them, if they get a mortgage for something, you guys get a mortgage for something, it does not include it in your net operating income. Your net operating income is considered that you figure it based on that you paid cash for the property. Okay, just the purchase price, not it's just a purchase price and the income, not based on whether or not you financed. Does not include debt service. Debt service, by the way, is the principal and interest paid toward a mortgage or note. And it is not principal like that. It's principal with the AL. I misspelled it. Leverage. So you guys know leverage. So somebody comes to you and they have $100,000. That doesn't mean they can only buy a $100,000 property, right? They can buy several $100,000 properties or one big property worth more because they can leverage. The use of borrowed money for investment purposes with the expectation that returns will increase. Leverage creates some risk, as we all can imagine. You're borrowing money now, but it also alleviates risk. How so?
How does it alleviate risk?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it alleviates risk because it doesn't put all your money at stake, and it has other people involved in the transaction if something goes south.
Okay. Well, a little bit. Nobody's going to come to your aid if it goes south, and you still might put all your money into that transaction. But if let's say somebody has just for basic math purposes, $100,000, instead of buying one $100,000 property and hopefully getting a 10% return. And we're going to go through this a little bit more, but as far as how much more money you can get, how much more you can make, but it alleviates that because it allows you to buy 5 properties with 20% down or 4 properties with 25% down of the same properties. Okay, so you can buy more, and that alleviates risk, which we'll talk about later. But you're right, and that it doesn't have all your eggs in one basket. If you have if you buy one property with that and you have vacancies and stuff like that, then you're going to have no return. So it alleviates some risk in that regard.
Brian, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, are you going to maybe give an example of how much more you can buy, like with that 100,000?
I'm going to.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's fine. Cash on cash return. Rate of return, often used in real estate transactions. The calculation determines the cash income on the cash invested. That is what people want to know. When they say to you, how well can I do with this $100,000? How much money can I make? That's what they want to know. What is my cash on cash return? And we're going to talk about how leveraging finances that. When would we not use this as an overall rate of return? All right, we're going to talk a little bit about ROI, which is return on investment versus rate of return. Obviously, it's not the same when you leverage, right? It's going to affect it greatly. Does use of leverage affect our cash on cash return? Of course it is. Does it affect our cap rate? Does use of leverage affect a cap rate? That's right. Angie's got it. No, it does not. I can only see a few of you. So Angie's got it. No, it does not affect your cap rate because it doesn't have anything to do with it. Cap rate, remember, is based off net operating income, which does not take into account debt service. So it does not affect your cap rate. All right, here you go, Ryan. Let's talk about Aunt Sally. So Aunt Sally made Thanksgiving dinner this year. You told her you were selling real estate and becoming quite the expert. Sally said she has been looking at a couple of investment properties on the internet and that she had learned quite a bit too. She had a property right here on her phone and she would love your opinion. Uh-oh, you need to know what you're talking about, right? So here's Aunt Sally's big find. She shows it to you. The advertisement for it states the following: a fourplex, a quad in the downtown area. Asking price, $359,000. Ad says seller is motivated. Gross rental income is $900 per unit times the 4 units times the 12 months for $43,200 per year. Taxes and insurance are $3,600 annually. That's all you know. What do you tell Aunt Sally? Well, I told you right there on the next thing. No, hopefully nothing, but we've learned a little bit about Sally, right? We've learned that Sally's in need of guidance. We've learned that we need to do some homework. We're going to help Aunt Sally. And the reason I say Sally's in need of guidance, Sally's asking you for an opinion on something and didn't give you nearly enough information. Okay. You can't make any kind of decision based on that. And you need to know about Sally. This is where we're going to talk about our investors too. We need to do some homework. What else do we need to know? We need to know about Sally. How much cash does Sally have? What is Sally's long-term goal? What are Sally's other investments? What would be her exit strategy? How does she feel about leveraging? Can she leverage? If the leveraging, the interest in leveraging, and Rushy, I'll get right to you in a second. The interest in leveraging is different for a 30-year-old versus a 75-year-old, right? And everybody's needs are different and everything else. And if you look at the investor questionnaire that I gave you guys, and we'll go over it later, you'll see that these are questions on there. And if Aunt Sally can't answer these questions, she's got a lot of thinking to do before she invests in anything. Okay, Reshu, what's your question?
Ryan, can I have the first slide where you were talking about Sally's, it's a 450K. I just want to take a screenshot of that, please.
Talking about what, the property that she found?
Yes.
Oh, we're going to go back into it. We're going to go through that thoroughly. You'll see all the numbers here shortly. Hold on, I got a lot of people in chat. Tax benefits, yes, that's good. Sorry, guys. And I'll get back to the rest of the chat later. All right, let me see. All right, so let's talk about this. How much cash does she have? What's her long-term goal? What are her other investments? What would her exit strategy be? How does she feel about leveraging? Can she leverage? All right, we also need to know more about the property. What's the vacancy and delinquency? Those risks must be calculated and anticipated for real cash flow. These units are all identical and rent for $900 each per month. Is market rent trending up or down? We need to know that. Expenses. Get historical data to determine repairs and anticipate future repairs. Tenant turnover creates turn expenses. How long have the tenants been there? For you Orlando people, would UCF, Disney area, and downtown have similar turnover? What do you guys think? Anybody?
And
no, I think the college area will have turnover more in the seasons of the college, the semesters of college.
Right. Anybody else? I think that's right too. Yeah, you guys, Angie, I know you worked out near the UCF area, and I'm sure you saw plenty of that. And parents come in and buy townhouses for their kids who are going to go to college there, and then the kids leave and they sell them, and all that stuff as well. So yeah, of course, turnover in different areas is different. All right, let's go over how to calculate net operating income. You've got rental income minus vacancy losses minus expenses. That's all it is. That's all your NOI is for a rental, for a residential rental property or any rental property. Let's do our practice problem. This is what you asked for, Rishu. The quad. Get a screenshot of this. Purchase price of the fourplex is $325. We're going to be doing some math now, so get your calculators handy or your phones. Purchase price of the fourplex is $325. Buyer places 20% down, or $65,000, financing $260,000. 30-year loan is at 6.5% with principal interest payment of $1,643 per month. Taxes and insurance at purchase are $3,600 per year, like we talked about before, for a total payment of $1,943 per month. So all I did was take that $3,600 a year, that's $300 a month, and added it to our principal interest, right? So $1,943 a month. This is with leverage, right? All right, perform the calculations. We got the $43,200 a year. The payments times 12 months are $23,316 per year. Previous owner's repair expenses average $1,700 per year, just a little quadplex. Vacancy and credit loss estimated at 6% of rent, or $25.92 per year. Owner spends about $400 each year in miscellaneous and advertising costs and manages the property themselves. Okay, so they don't have a management expense. So here's the math. 43.2 minus the vacancy losses minus the expenses and marketing. There's our net operating income, 35,808. Our debt service, 23,316. And our annual cash flow is 15,192. So what did we do for purchase price here? We did 325. So someone give me a cap rate on the 325 and the 15,192. How do you determine that? All right, I'll stop you. It was a trick question. The 15,192 is not a net operating income, right?
Yes.
The 15, this is a net operating income. So you do the net operating, you do the cap rate before the debt service. Okay, so that's not one, but here it is. Cash on cash return of this, your cash on cash return of this, because you only put $65,000 down, is a 23% cash on cash return. All right. That sounds great, right? Does that sound good? 23% cash on cash?
Yeah.
But is it really good?
It depends.
It is really good. It is fantastic. That's a good return, cash on cash. The guy who comes to you with $100,000, if you told him, yeah, I can get you 23% a year on that, you'd be pretty excited, right? I mean, I would think so. Wouldn't you guys be? So,
yes.
So that is that's a great return, but not everybody wants to leverage, and not everybody can leverage. So what if I paid cash? Are there any changes to taxes or insurance? Nope. Any change to vacancy or repairs? Nope. Is there any change to debt service? Yes, right? Wipes it out. No debt service. How does it affect my return? Anybody want to take a stab at how it affects your return?
Goes down, right?
Correct. Look at this. So we have the same annual cash flow because it didn't affect any of this stuff, right? It didn't affect the rent income, changing to cash, didn't affect the vacancy and losses, didn't affect insurance and taxes, didn't affect the expenses. So we have the same NOI. So what's my return now that I put $325,000 in it? And this is what I want you guys to do. What's my return? What's my cap rate on this? What's my percentage of return, rate of return on my cash? On a cash deal, I pay $325 and it brings in $34,908.
325. 34. It's about close to 10%.
Close to 10%. Give me a little more than that.
I got. You want like precise?
Yes. Yeah. Every dollar matters in this deal.
I got 9.3%.
Okay. I think you might have done it wrong.
Okay.
Put into your calculator 34,908 and then divide it by 325,000.
10.7.
There you go. 10.74%, right? So that's how you figure a cap rate. Net operating income over the purchase price. All right. All right. So leverage versus cash. Buying this leverage versus buying it cash. We seem to get a much higher return when we leveraged. Did we really get a higher return?
Yes,
No. In one way we got 34,000, the other way we only got 15,000. So we didn't get anywhere close to the same return. We got a higher return with cash, but we also could have bought with that, since we only put $65,000 down as opposed to $325,000. assuming we have the 325,000 to do this, we could have bought 5 more properties, right? 4 more properties, 5 total properties. So we could have bought more properties, and then that 15 turns into 75. But assuming we buy 4 more identical properties to this, right? So you see where leveraging creates a lot more money, creates a little bit of risk, but alleviates a little bit of risk, right? So that's how that works. So do we really get a higher return? No, of course not. But we only put 65,000 in it instead of 325. What is the mindset of your investor? Okay, this is what you need to determine. What is the mindset of your investor? Why do so many investors pay cash? Why do you think so many investors pay cash? And Javier hit on a little bit of it earlier.
A lot of investors that I know, they're looking to get rid of cash for tax reasons. So to have the full cash write-off.
Okay.
And maybe get a better deal. It's getting back to being able to get a better deal on a property when you use cash.
Yep.
Because they have a lot laying around. Yeah.
Because they have a lot laying around.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe the deal is faster and, it closes quickly.
Right. Right.
It could be like I think Javier said earlier about if someone wants to change currencies, like if they want to get from one currency to another currency.
They want to move their money. Yes. Yeah, they're using it as a vehicle to move money. Yep.
Ryan, I have investors that have to pay cash because the property is not financeable when they buy it, and they add value to the property. And then do what's
one of the
called
things
takeout
also
loan.
I believe is when people invest in a property, normally they already have a property, right? So what they're looking for is a property that they don't need to pay monthly, because if they have the property vacancy, they are scared about who is going to pay the additional mortgage, So
Right.
that's why sometimes they invest in cash. That way they don't have to deal with mortgage.
That's right. Good. Yes, George.
Yes, I'm sorry, I stepped on somebody there. My investors, a lot of them want to add value, so they'll buy a property that's not financeable, and or they'll use hard money, which is a different way to go about it. But and then when they get it put in reasonable, rentable, or flippable shape, then they will not flippable, because you don't care at that point. Most generally, you're turn it into a rental. They will then do a takeout loan, which will put it back into a standard type mortgage and at a lower interest, and they can leverage that over time.
So there's strategical reasons for doing it as well. So yeah, there's all that, and a lot of times people have a lot of they don't have a lot of leverageability. A lot of people can't borrow a lot of money because of their age. And people aren't as willing to loan them money. So there are different things. A lot of people are just risk averse, and they just would rather have their solid return. So importantly, and I tell you guys this in sales all the time. I tell you this when you're out there showing $5 million houses, and you're showing houses that you would never want to buy because they're too fancy, or they're too this or too that, or you're showing places that you would never live in. You don't put that on because they're not nice enough. You don't put that mindset on your clients. You can't sell like that. Not everybody has the same mindset that you do. Not everybody has, you can be a 21-year-old kid and go out there and sell $50 million yachts, right? That you can never afford at this point. But you have to put yourself in other people. Not everybody has the mindset, that you have, and you have to put yourself in your client's mindset, not in your own. So do not assume that they have the same mindset, that they're as risk averse, as aggressive as you might be, or they might be more inclined to take on risk than you are. And you might, you don't tell them, hey, that's crazy, unless it is crazy. But try not to assume that they have the same mindset that you do, because they probably don't. Active versus passive investments. Ryan, you brought this up earlier about passive investments. Is managing property something your investor wants to do on a daily basis, or do they want to just keep being an engineer or an architect or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, and let you handle this for them, or let a professional handle this for them? An active investor, you see a lot of retirees do this, manage the properties herself. A passive investor hires a management company. What is involved in managing a property?
15% of the gross income of the property for short-term rental and 10% for long-term rental.
Fair enough. That's pretty much industry standards. I think FRI is 8%, but most of them are 10% is what you figure, 10% typically. 15 for short-term, and it can be up to 40 or 50 if the short-term is also booking your place for you. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe even more than that. I don't know. That's what I'm familiar with. So active risk, right. What does a management company do? And what can you expect to do if you manage your own, or your client? What can they expect to do when they tell you they want to manage their own? Make sure they know what's involved in it. I can't tell you how many people hire management companies after they've already tried to do it themselves. They've already got their client in some lease they got off of Google, and they're stuck in that lease they got off of Google for a year. And then they'll come to a FRI or another property management company and say, I'm in trouble. I didn't know all this was involved. They may even not be able to evict somebody because their lease was weak, or whatever it is. They've got squatters now. But property management service, tenant screening and placement, property maintenance, rent collection and remittance, inspections, repairs, cleaning, lease renewals, evictions, all that stuff that people don't know a lot about. So I'm not saying I'm not telling you to sell people on management services or not, but just make sure that they're aware of everything that they need to do if you've got a green investor. When I say green, I don't mean environmentally friendly, I mean new. All right, commercial investment basics. You guys have anything else on we're just going to do something real quick on commercial because you guys are going to learn just enough about this to confuse you. But I want to make sure you guys understand the residential part. Everything good on the residential, the cash on cash return. Return on investment is calculated a little bit differently. You can't really get one until you dispose of the asset. So it's kind of difficult to figure here. But cash on cash is what people are interested in. Yes, Daryl.
Ask me how long my lease is. How many pages?
I have a question for Daryl. How long is your lease, Daryl?
18 pages.
18 pages?
18, yeah. It was written by my attorney.
Right, so nobody's ever read the whole thing, including your attorney.
Exactly.
Good. Well, that'll baffle the tenants anyway. Daryl, do you have any questions or comments on this? How do you evaluate your properties?
You know what? I have a really easy formula, super easy, and it's made me money through the years. What I do is I look at duplexes, triplexes, and quads usually. Half of the rent, half of the units have to pay the PITI.
Okay.
So if I look at a duplex, one unit has to pay PITI, principal, interest,
taxes, and insurance.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Triplex, the same way, 1.5 units. Quads, 2 units. So as long as you stick to that formula, you're fine. I've had no problems through the years doing that formula. It's super easy. It takes nothing to really think about.
Right. What do you put down on your properties, Darren? Percentage-wise?
Totally depends on the property. Usually at least 20 to 25% down, depending if they're residential or commercial.
Right.
Plus on commercial, I do normally commercial loans, which you have to speak to lenders that know commercial loans. A lot of them don't know. They have no idea what a commercial loan is. Actually, I went to Fairwinds. They had no idea what a commercial loan with DI, the debt service loan, no idea what it was. So I had to explain it, and they still didn't know. Mm-hmm. So I find smaller banks smaller credit unions and stuff around the area. But yeah, all I do is half of the rent goes towards PITI, and I'm fine with that.
Do you ever figure your cash on cash return?
I do, but I don't really pay that much attention to it, only because of my formula works too well.
Okay.
It's such a simple formula. And I have a really good CPA that owns rental properties herself and works with realtors. So she knows exactly how to deduct all the fees and all the repairs and everything that happen through the year. So yeah, I've done.
Do you want me to ask you? Do you want me to ask you this now, or do you want to wait till everybody asks for it on chat and say what's her name and number?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually Pritha Daswani, over on Conway and I-4. Just Google her. It's Daswani, Daswani. She works with all the top producers here in Orlando. She does rental properties full-time. Yes, there you go. Thank you.
All right, that'll give you a start on Google. Google is your friend after that.
She's great. She's absolutely great. She has saved me so much money through the years. It wasn't funny.
Okay.
And
Fantastic.
I send her over all the stats on the rental properties before we buy them to make sure that all the numbers that I'm looking at are correct.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
It's worked
Good.
out great.
Good. Thank you very much for that. Any other questions for Daryl while he's on?
And actually, I've got still some more to say. Actually, I buy them with a private money loan usually. I've got a friend that has private money, 10% down. I just found him by asking around.
Don't share that on chat.
I'm not. He's a private friend. He's an attorney, so he's a good friend of mine. But I do private money, 10% down, because the properties are usually need tons of repairs. So we go in there and we repair all the units and everything, get them up to market value, and then we refinance into a regular mortgage.
Okay.
So I start with it's a high percentage rate. It's like it was, because I haven't bought anything in like 2 years because can't find anything. It was right around 8% or so with 2 points or so? No, maybe 1 point now because I've done like 3 loans. And then I refinanced into a regular loan, which is a lot lower interest rate. So it works out. You got to finance it through the private money, then you got to refinance it through the regular mortgage.
Okay.
So Daryl, when
Thank
is your
you.
formula? When is your formula coming into place? Is it after the repair value and after you do all the refinancing? At this formula that you have, because you said that you want to make sure that it can suffice the DIPI. So when are you applying that formula? At the beginning or?
Actually, both ends. I do it up front to see what it makes up front, because you can tell right away what it makes up front. But then I also do it after I've remodeled the units. I always look at the market rate after I remodel it, because that's the actual numbers that I want to look at. So I do it before and I do it after.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments before we move on to the commercial stuff?
Daryl, this is George Lumen. Do you use software?
I don't.
Okay.
I've got software, but I never used it. I've used this formula for years because it's a no-brainer formula, and it's hard to find properties like that. You really got to look. Like I said, we haven't bought anything for the last 2 years or so, because there's nothing. Everything's overpriced. There's nothing to buy. We have actually another unit, a 3 unit for sale up in Daytona for $350, and it's a little bit overpriced, of course. But we sold one in New Smyrna 6 months ago, and we made a fortune. Not a fortune, but anyway.
Not a fortune. Not a fortune. All right.
The reason I asked that, Daryl and Ryan, is that I use a software package that does both current or actuals and pro forma. So what it's going to produce now, and present that side by side. And you can portfolio the products and everything. But I put everybody in that software. It calculates all the numbers for me, and it doesn't cost me that much. So. It's all based on industry standards, so CCIM data. So you plug all that in and you come out. Yours is good. The rule of thumb, you pay 50% of what you expect for it on a flip, and 50-60% you're there. But with the housing market going up so rapidly, that rule of thumb probably needs some work. But
I joined CFRI, Central Florida Real Estate Investors, years ago. And it taught me so much. It wasn't funny. So much.
Get local knowledge. If you guys are going to do this, work with investors. Fortune Builders, Armando, buy $1 million house and flip it in LA. Those are bunk. You got to have local knowledge and local people. Don't wait, buy a new car. Don't go out and invest money in these guys.
And get to know the local people, because
Pardon?
I have vendors, I have friends that do flips. I have a couple friend that does flips. What's she do? They do probably 4 to 5 flips every month. So, and I'm a really good friend with her. So she gives me all the background information that I need. And when I need vendors, I call her for cabinets, for bathrooms, for kitchens, and she calls me too, because I have lots of vendors too, and we share it back and forth. So yeah, it's all about relationships. Get to know those. She invites us over to parties at her house, and it's a great time.
Sounds good. Yeah, CFRI is good. That's a good source of local knowledge. Learning how to flip junkers to jewels, great program. But get your knowledge local and get it for free. Do not pay these guys that you see. If you're getting your knowledge from the late night TV shows, just get sleep.
and junkers for jewels is like what, $300, and it's a whole weekend. I'm not sure if it's still 300, but I did it one weekend. It was a whole weekend from Friday to Sunday. They took us out on a bus. They showed us like 5 flip homes. Was it a multifamily home too? I don't know, but it was fun. We had a blast all day long. We were looking at the homes. We were figuring out what we needed to do to remodel and what the purchase price, what we need to sell it for. It was great.
Yeah, that's a good program. So yeah, anyway, I'll let Brian take the meeting back, but CFRI, if you want to be an investment realtor, is a must.
Sorry, everybody. I always hijack this thing.
We love it. We love it. All right, guys. So we're going to move on with commercial. Commercial investment basics. All right, cap rates are king. That's how people determine valuations in commercial property. It's the same. It's the net income over the investment. Why are they important? We'll talk about that stuff. Types of leases: triple net, double net, single net, modified gross, full service. I'll go through those with you quickly. Triple net. So the whole idea of the triple net, well, never mind. Let's go through this first. The net number 1, the common area maintenance, a lot of times called the CAM. Net number 2, taxes, and net number 3, insurance. Triple net is what you see most often. And just to confuse you a little further, people will call all 3 of these together CAM, as in we're asking $25 a foot base rent plus CAM. So the CAM is also known as pass-throughs. You'll hear people say pass-throughs. What do those 3 things up there have in common? The common area maintenance, taxes, and insurance. What do they have in common? What do they have in common that makes makes your future incomes hard to determine?
The inflation.
Variable. Oh.
They're variable, right? Inflation, right, Lisa, right? Everybody, their inflation affects them. Just all kinds of, for insurance, hurricanes affect them. But, this year's hurricanes affect next year's rates, et cetera, right? So yes, they're called pass-throughs, and they're passed through to the tenant, and they vary every year. And why would we do that? Why would we set up something with base rent plus that instead of the landlord just saying, you know what, I'll just raise the base rent a little bit to cover anything that might happen? Why will they take the base rent and separate it completely and separate these out? Who knows why?
To see if their investment's even worth it in that particular location, maybe.
Well, I think they could probably tell that anyway. George, what do you think?
I think it's strictly a risk aversion strategy. You pass on the variables and the unknowns to the tenant.
That's a big part of it. There's one more reason. Who else knows a good reason why? We were just talking about how you evaluate these things and all the things that might come up and might change and everything else. Anybody have an idea of why? So many of these commercial properties are bait for real estate investment trusts, hedge funds, et cetera. They can easily be packaged based on base rent. They don't have to do a whole breakdown of the taxes, insurance, and common area maintenance. If it's a pass-through to the tenant anyway, they don't care, all right? What they care about is vacancy
and they care about what the base rent is. All right. So they're easily packaged this way, because the cap rate is easy. I don't have to do all this math. I don't have to do anything. If I'm trying to package a bunch of buildings up and sell them, I can do it just based off of their base rents. I can figure their NOI off of their base rents. Very, very simple. Their cap rates off their base rent. So, all right. So let's say we're doing any questions on these cap rates and stuff. I know this is confusing, but so you'll see triple net, you'll see double net, and you'll see single net. And usually single net is just common area maintenance, just covers the building maintenance and stuff, and it'll get rid of taxes or insurance. So a lot of times taxes are taken out or insurance is taken out, it'll be double net. So then you'll just have a smaller quote unquote CAM. But you'll see that, and you need to ask questions if that's the case. Modified gross is what you'll see a lot of old school, where we just rent you the building and then you pay for everything else if you're especially single tenants. And full service is if you get like an executive suite and they pay for everything. Doesn't matter if you leave your lights on or how often you flush the toilet, it's all the same, right? So you'll see that's full service. Commercial leasing. When you guys are representing, landlords or tenants, but typically multi-year terms of 3, 5, or 10 years, they'll typically have a tenant's option to renew, usually up to 3 terms. They'll have, I don't have it on here, but they'll have an escalator every year for the rent based on inflation. So it'll be, historically 3%, now probably more if you sign one today. The tenant guarantees the lease. All right. Usually there's a personal guarantee involved, unless it's a big AAA rated company of some type. Enticements. Landlord will give enticements. TI, tenant improvement. So if you're changing a hair salon into an Italian restaurant, a lot of times the landlord will offer you some tenant improvement, $10 a foot, $20 a foot to improve the place or make it, or even if you're making it from one restaurant to another one, it just needs new carpet and new booths or new whatever. They'll give you that because it's making their place worth more. Free rent. A lot of times you can get free rent. You should get either tenant improvement or free rent when you get a building or get a new space for a client. And don't be surprised if you're representing a landlord that people ask for either tenant improvement or free rent. It's not a scam. That's just what people ask for. And signage. You can be a title tenant. You can buy naming rights for a building, depending on the size of your company and the size of the deal you're doing. There'll be signage that'll be negotiated as well. So a lot of landlords will entice you with tenant improvement, free rent, or signage. Getting paid. Let's talk about this, because it's a question I get a lot from you guys. You do these commercial leases and you don't know how you get paid. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll get paid very little. You need to ask up front, what is my co-broke? That's what they call it in commercial. You guys ask for, you guys get MLS offers the cooperating broker a percentage. There's no official, usually, unless you're buying one that was on the MLS, there's no official thing here. Ask for the co-broke. If you're finding stuff on loopnet.com, crexy.com, you guys might want to write those down. I'm sure you've heard them before. LoopNet or Crexy, that's a good place to look. But before you deal with the commercial agent, ask them what the co-broke is, okay? Do not accept 1 month's rent as payment. You're going to do better than that. Certainly not half a month's rent. Should be a percentage of total value of first term of the lease. You do not get paid on renewals. So if it's a 5-year lease, I don't know if I gave an example. I did not. So let's say it's a 5-year lease and it's $5,000 a month. So that's base rent. So that's $60,000 a year times the 5 years is what you'll get paid for. I don't care if the tenant renews it 3 times, you'll get paid for the first 5 years. That's it. Don't expect a check in 5 years when they renew. So you get paid that 5 years times $60,000 a year, $300,000 is the total value of that lease. You'll get paid a percentage on that, typically about like residential. It's about like selling a $300,000 house, if that's what you do, okay? So it should be a percentage of the total value of the first term of the lease, not on renewals. Typically, it's paid half at lease signing and half at rent commencement, the start date and then the first rent payment. So if you negotiated 6 months of free rent, you're not going to get a check you're going to get half of it at lease signing. You get the other half in 6 months when they start paying rent. That is typical. Other things can be negotiated. The This is important. Get a mentor on your first deal or two. Guys, learn the business, learn from somebody who knows what they're doing. And what I tell you guys, and I know some of you commercial guys that are on here, you don't particularly love this, but I tell the residential agents, if you want to learn commercial, you love this part because you refer it to a commercial agent. But part of your deal with them needs to be that you work it with them. Tell them you'll do the legwork, you'll do whatever, but learn the deal with them. Do not get into this business just by, oh, well, I referred 2 deals. I'm tired of referring them. I want to work them now. You need to work the deal. So refer it to one of our commercial people, and then make us part of your deal. They'll still take you on. They'll drag you to a couple meetings, or they'll have you do some legwork, run down to the county for them or whatever. But you need to learn the deal. Tell them you want to be involved in all the communication. And you want to learn the deal, and that's part of my deal. The reason I'm referring this deal to you, Mr. Commercial Agent, is because I want to work with you on it. I'm happy to share the commission. I'm happy to just make a small piece of the commission, but I want to learn the business. That's part of my deal. All right, that's what I really recommend for you guys in commercial. And I'll tell you a quick story. So we had this property that we were managing up in Eustis. It was a shopping center that we were managing up in Eustis. And the manager came to me one day and said, I know your background's in commercial, and I've got this tenant. It was either Planet Fitness or one of those things. This was an old Publix center that Publix had moved out of. So it was just had a lot of space. So she came to me and says, this Planet Fitness, they came back to me and tried to change, I don't even remember what exact term it was, but they tried to change it at the last minute from 9% to 10%. Okay. And I said, I don't know if that's standard at all for these people, but I've got a good buddy who does this. So in commercial real estate, just so you guys know, and I do a whole training on commercial real estate. And the first part of that is telling you guys all the different niches in commercial real estate and how there's industrial, there's retail, there's office, there's leasing of all those things, sales of all those things. There's land for residential, there's residential subdivisions, there's land for commercial. There's a million different little niches, right, that people are experts in. And a guy who does retail leasing I have a lot of experience in different aspects of this, but I don't want to go against a guy. I could not do the best job against a guy who does retail leasing for a living and do the best for my client by representing them. So I called my friend who does this, and he said, oh, where is that? And I said, it's in Eustis. Well, he said, well, they're going to ask for that, but here's what they're going to do. And he tells me all this stuff. He knows the whole thing. He gives me a spiel on it. And I said, oh, do you represent them? And he goes, no, I don't represent Planet Fitness. I represent Anytime Fitness. But this is what Planet Fitness tried to do in Mount Dora, which is 5 miles away from here. He knew all of everything about a submarket of Orlando, not a very busy submarket, but he knew what they were doing. He said, oh, yeah, they've done that here and there. He knew what they have been doing. This is a competitor of one of his clients in a submarket. And he guessed the whole deal. He guessed what they were paying. He guessed everything, because that's how in tune he is with what he does. That is what he does for a living. I know, Daryl, you work Williamsburg, right? Nobody should know Williamsburg like you do. If I come down to Williamsburg, you're going to school me, right? And that's what people who do this for a living do to others. So get an expert involved on your side for your client and learn the business from an expert, if that's what you want to do.
Actually, downtown and Williamsburg.
Downtown, and I did not mean to disparage the good name of downtown Daryl. So Daryl could school me in downtown or Williamsburg. So that's it, guys. If you're going to do commercial stuff, learn from somebody, but do it hands-on with them. All right, I'm going to stop screen share now. We're done. I'm going to stop screen share, and I'm going to look at the chat because I can't do that. I haven't seen you guys' beautiful faces, just a couple of you at a time. All right. Where did I find an LOI for commercial? That's a great question, Javier. I've got an example, a sample I can send you. But honestly, you can get it off of Google. That's where I got my first sample, was off of Google. But okay, so an LOI. Let's talk about LOIs too. I'm going to take George's question first, and then we're going to talk about LOIs. Go ahead, George.
You're on mute, George.
You're on mute, buddy. There you go.
Am I off mute now?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
For LOIs, we used Nishad for the last one we did. He is an excellent resource. And later on, I'll come back because you're still on commercial. You come back to residential. I'll have an offer for the group.
All right. All right. Let's talk about LOIs in general. I have historically, when the market's moving fast, I've never been a fan of LOIs, but a lot of people want them. They are completely non-binding. They never have held up in court or anything else, unless they're talking about a business, unless there's NDAs involved and stuff like that. But a typical LOI for a piece of property, I'll go ahead. That's just forget everything I just said. That's just my personal opinion on them. You asked how to actually do them. They're just a basic agreement to terms. You just put the most basic of terms in there to make sure that we're on the same page that this is even worth negotiating. So if someone signing one doesn't mean that they agreed to everything you said. That just means that they typically have language in them about how they're binding those parties together for 30 days so the seller won't negotiate with anyone else in that time. I don't think they're friendly for sellers. I don't think they're particularly good for buyers. I'd rather just go straight to contract if we're in agreement, if we've verbally discussed most of the things, because the LOI, you can't come back later and say, well, your LOI said you wanted to pay this much and now your contract says that much. Well, tough luck. We looked into it a little more, whatever it is. But to answer your question on LOIs, I can get you one. I use them. I don't like them. I think they're a waste of time, but I'll use them and I'll accept them. I don't know if I mentioned that they're a waste of time, but they are. And you can find one on Google. I can give you an example of one that I've used recently. There are different ways to do it, but typically it's just going to list 6 or 7 major terms and go from there. You're going to talk about the price. You're going to talk about when we're going to close, how we're going to close, what our due diligence period is, et cetera. It's going to lay those things out. It's general terms of the contract. And then you try to have an attorney draw it up where they don't make it too cumbersome to where we can't come to an agreement after we did all this. Okay. I don't know if that answers your question, Javier, but I'll get you one. All right. Awesome. Any other questions? I'll write down the names of the pages to search for commercial properties. I can do that. There you go. Those are some of them. You can try to find stuff other places. You can even look at MLS, but most of the good finds you're going to find are not in the MLS for commercial properties.
MLS doesn't have LOI. I mean, I couldn't find it.
No, they don't have an LOI. I'm sorry. They list. We're talking about listings now. Commercial listings. They're going to have some commercial listings, but they're not going to be most stuff you're not going to find on MLS. They're passed on to tenants. Why are they needed for calculations? They're not. They're needed for the tenants' calculations when they're the landlord has to calculate them to know what to charge the tenants. So the landlord takes all of their common area maintenance bills, all of their tax bills, and all their insurance bills, and they divide them by the square foot. So if we go into a building and my space is 5,000 square feet and your place is 10,000 square feet, the price is per square feet, so you're going to pay twice as much as I am and Cam if the pass-throughs, if that makes sense. So if you have a 100,000 square foot building and your all that stuff is 500,000 a year, it's going to be $5 a square foot. And if somebody's space is twice as big as mine, they're going to pay twice as much. Does that make sense? Any other questions or comments?
Ryan?
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to share, I added it into the text, but or the chat. But for those that are interested in learning more about commercial and or connecting with other commercial lead opportunities, check your local association commercial councils because they usually meet at least once a month. And it's a networking opportunity to meet with other commercial folks in the area, as well as get to share deals. So if you have a deal or a property that you're looking for, you get a chance to talk to that. And then you also get a chance to hear what other people have to offer and or are looking for. And so that's where deals are made. So just opportunity to consider.
Awesome. Thank you, Clarence. Appreciate it.
Ryan,
Yes, sir.
it's George. I'm a multi-state investor and have been working this for about 10, 15 years now. I have a class that I teach, Real Estate Investing 101. It's primarily for flips and rentals, buy and holds, however you want to call that. I don't really delve into commercial. And it's a day class. It'd be Saturday all day long. And we'll bring in people that you need on your team to talk about what you need to know, how to get financed, how to insure it, how to inspect it, all of those items. And it's open to realtors and their clients. Your client will be protected. I'm not there to get your client. So I will put that together if there's enough interest and offer it.
Great, and he brings up something important that you guys need to do for yourself if you're going to do this. But if you're going to add value to the life of an investor and you want to represent them, add value to them by putting a team together for them as well, right? So you want to have a team and a team that you can present to investors. Those of you who aren't going to be investing necessarily on your own, or even if you are, but you want to represent investors, you want to make some commissions. Add some value, guys. What does an investor need you for if you're not adding value? So add some value, and that you're going to have a lot of new investors are good investors. Just make sure they know what they're looking at and what hold on one second, and what they need. So make sure you have the things that they need, and they're going to need people to do cabinets, and they're going to need people to do this and do that. And some of them are going to flip, and even if they're not flippers, they're going to want to repair the place. A lot of times they're going to have tenants in the place. When your investor buys it, they'll already have tenants in there, but the investor probably, a lot of times they want the tenant their lease expires, they want to fix the place up or something. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just want the return. So they just want to be really passive. So know what they're looking for, but also have the ability to set them up with a lender who can help them. Like Daryl's found, you guys, I've dragged hard money lenders in here before. If you guys need those, you have a library of them, and you certainly can find them easily. You can put it in our FRI, our agents group. Hopefully you guys are using that as well to use each other as a resource. Let's talk quickly about this. I told you guys I would do this and I haven't done it yet. Let's talk about this investor questionnaire. You guys see that?
Yep.
Yes, see the questionnaire? Okay. All right. So this is something to sit down with them, and I'm not telling you guys to email this to them and have them fill it out. But the question is to ask them while you're on the phone with them, while you're meeting with them, preferably while you're meeting with them, and you can write them down. What's your real estate investment goal? Tell me about your portfolio. What kind of properties you have, what kind of return you're getting, what are your exit strategies? A lot of the stuff that Daryl mentioned about his stuff today, we could answer a lot of these questions, right? What kind of properties would you like to acquire and why? All right, a lot of these questions, guys, are just to determine how serious they are and if they're a sophisticated investor or not. Some of you guys might be intimidated by a sophisticated investor. Don't be. Those are the best. They know what they want. They know what they're looking at. When you send them stuff, they're going to give you a yes or a no because they're going to be able to determine what they need to determine. I'm more afraid of the ones who cannot answer any of these questions. When I say afraid, that they're going to be wasting my time because they don't know what they're getting into exactly. But it's also an opportunity to mold them as an investor, to hear what they want to do with their life and decide what help them decide what their investment goals should be, right? And then the best way to get there. And the only way to do this is to learn the business and know what you're talking about. What is your required rate of return on your next investment? How long do you plan to keep it in your portfolio? Is this for life, or are we turning this thing around? We're going to improve this property, get the rents up, and get rid of it? What are we doing? When would you like to acquire the property? That's a good thing to know, right? When are they looking to close? Are you looking to invest strictly cash? Are you going to use leverage? If leveraging, how much? And are you pre-approved? And with whom? Do you plan to manage the property yourself, or is it a passive investment? And again, you'll have in your back pocket ways to help these people, right? If they say, "Oh gosh, no, I'm busy. I've got a job and kids and this and that and taking care of my parents," and well, then it needs to be a passive investment, and I can hook you up with a property management company. Are you purchasing in your own name using an organization, LLC, trust, etc.? And have you spoken with a tax or legal professional regarding the benefits or drawbacks of using an organization, right? Those are just questions. And a lot of these questions, you want it to be, yes, I've handled that. Yes, I know that. Yes, I have an attorney. You want, that stuff. But if not, that's okay too, as long as they're serious. So this should separate the wheat from the chaff, though, when you're figuring out who's an investor and who's not, who's serious and who's not, who's going to waste your time and who's not. So each of you guys has a copy of that. It's also on Paperless Pipeline under the reference tab, like so many nuggets of awesomeness. So you guys have access to that. Any questions on the investor questionnaire? None. Perfect. It means you guys love it.
No, I have a question. This is Shikha here.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Orlando, there is like condos. Hotel condos is also like very popular here. So there is for them, there's a little bit different calculation, or it's gonna be same calculation?
Same calculation. I'm sorry. What was wrong with the condo?
No, I'm asking like condo hotel is very popular in Orlando.
Condo hotel?
Hotels, yeah. So for them, there will be the different calculation, or it's going to be same calculation. We are just calculating with the commercial or the residential.
Well, I mean, you're just looking at net operating income versus how much they cost to find out what your return is. Again, it depends on what, it's like, okay, if you go to a car dealership, they've got so many ways to get you. They're going to get you on your trade-in. They're going to get you on your financing. They're going to get you on the sticker price of the car. They're going to get you one way or another. And we all go in there and we've got our hot buttons, right? By God, I'm going to get 20,000 for my trade, no matter what. And they go in and they, describe, I'll have to talk to my manager, and so they go back there and they laugh about whatever game they watched last night. Then they come out and they tell you, well, I guess if you're going to pay sticker on this new one, we can do that for you, but you're going to have to finance with us. So in other words, we're going to get you 2 out of 3 ways, but we're going to give you what you want for your trade, right? Everybody's got a hot button. So you'll get people who say, I just want to get X amount return. I just want to do this. I only want to put this much money into it, and I expect to get this much out, right? So there's different ways to do that. With Daryl's PITI and half of the units covering his PITI, that depends on what interest rate he gets, what the insurance and taxes look like, where he's going and where he's buying. And if he buys a beachfront property, obviously that insurance is going to be high, his taxes are going to be high, but he can get a better rate on his loan if he does a certain whatever, right? So all of these things are variables, and what someone's hot button is what's going to determine what they like and don't like. So some of them just want a certain rate. Some of them I have people say, I don't really care. I just want to be in a nice neighborhood. I want the property to be in a nice neighborhood. Maybe I'm looking for appreciation. Maybe I'm looking for, something else. And, I can get you, the highest rate of return properties are in the more disadvantaged neighborhoods because they're cheap, yet a roof over your head is worth a certain amount every month, right? So if you can find a $75,000 unit right now, it's going to rent. Does anything rent? I don't care if it's a studio, does anything rent for under $700 a month? No. So you're over 10% return right there, right? So you ask about condos, HOAs. Do those HOAs kill deals? Some you'll get a hot button. I do not want an HOA fee. I don't want a condo because of the HOA. Well, do you want to paint this thing and put a new roof on it every 11 years? Or, or is a couple $100 a month okay? If we're getting cable and this and that, and we're not having to pay for a lawn or a pool or anything else, is an HOA really a deal killer? Not necessarily, right? HOAs, they're not great, but they're spending money on redoing the building, right? I live in a townhouse. I have an HOA, but I'll never have to put a roof on it or paint the outside or do my lawn, right? Or my pool, right? So
HOAs make for a better tenant as well, because you don't have to, well, you probably can't inspect that often on your lease agreement, but they do. They pay attention. And I just pass on HOA fines to my tenants. They learn in a hurry. All my properties are in HOAs.
Right. And I've rented a property with a pool before in a yard. And you know what I do? I pay for the pool in the yard, because if you leave it up to the tenant, it's not going to get done. You're asking for HOA fines, right? And you're asking for a green swamp pool in the back. We had one time I had a turtle in it, so living in it. So that's it gets pretty bad. So those are all things to consider. But some people will say, you'll hear people, I don't want an HOA, because they owned something one time and they owned a condo and it was only rented for $1,100. The HOA was $550, and so they were like, this is terrible. Or they had a property with an HOA that they got fined a lot for, like George was just talking about, and they don't want to deal with that. So that's the kind of thing. Some people want, I want a place in a nicer neighborhood. I'll pay a little bit more for it because I want to attract a nicer tenant, a higher paying tenant. So people, whatever, people are going to want different things. Any other questions or comments about that?
Which I think she was asking also about short-term condos. And short-term condos are a totally different breed. You got to watch the property management, because they will take so many fees. It's not funny. To where the short-term rentals make no sense whatsoever. They could make an income of $40,000 a year on a 2-bedroom, but the management fees take $20,000 of that property management fee. So just bullshit. I've had those deals in the past, and you really got to watch the property management fees on the short-term rentals. So. Yep.
I agree. But their values are, once you get that net value, Daryl, once you get that net number, it's figured the same way though. I mean, if it brought in 40, but we paid 20 in fees and stuff, then it brings in 20, and we got to base the value based on that. So any other questions or comments about this?
Ryan, I have a question, please.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I see hands up and I'm ignoring my own system. I apologize. Reshu, go ahead.
So Ryan, I have a question. Suppose you are paying $1,800 as a PITI, as Daryl said, for a house. What is the good rent for that home? It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Orlando and in Oviedo, if we differentiate. I'm just taking a ballpark.
Well, according to Daryl's formula, it's $3,600, because you said it's $1,800 for PITI, and he wants twice that.
So how much rent did you say?
3,600, according to Daryl's thing, right, Daryl? 1,800 was her PITI. So according to Daryl's theory, he needs to bring in 3,600.
Not really for single-family homes. That was mostly for multifamily.
So, 3,600 is a lot, Ryan. No, you are no.
Sorry, wish I could help you. I can't raise the rent.
So
it's not. This is not a Daryl worthy deal. Is what the problem is. So Daryl's going to pass. If you're selling, Daryl's passing.
So if the rent is lower than that, that means the person who owns the house is having a loss?
No. No, that everybody has their own, like we were just talking about with that questionnaire, everybody has their own criteria. No, a lot of people, if they're building, how many guys have you guys have had a seller who a buyer who doesn't want to sell their old house, they're just going to keep it and rent it out, right? What do they typically look for? A little more than what their mortgage is, right? Because they just want it to cash flow, put a few bucks in their pocket every month while it builds appreciation. They don't want to sell it because they think it's going to appreciate in value typically, right?
That's exactly, yes.
That makes sense? Okay. Yes. Well, then no, you don't need double. You need whatever makes the owner happy. There's no formula for that. You're trying to reverse engineer this now. So the fact is, okay, there are two things that matter: what you can do and what you can't do. That's all that matters. So the fact is that you have an $1,800 mortgage payment. The fact is that the market rate for whatever that is whatever it is. Okay, if it's $2,500, then that's great. They get to put $700 in their pocket, or well, they need to pay their mortgage, and then they're going to have to take care of probably a pool and a yard and everything else. So they're lucky. Anytime you do that kind of stuff, you're lucky to put a couple $100 in your pocket while the property appreciates.
Okay. And one more question. Palak asked, but I'm going to ask how to look for homes which we can, show the investors to put for Airbnb. How to do that search criteria?
For Airbnb, short-term rentals.
No, Airbnb. Yes, Airbnb.
They're just short-term. You're looking to buy some properties for Airbnb?
My investors want the property that they can put for Airbnb.
Okay, you're going to search short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
You bet. Miss Tammy.
Hey.
Hey.
I've been on the go. This is totally off subject, but I would have to probably text you or call you or ask you this anyway. I I'm selling a house. It's got solar panels. So should I put on the contract that the buyer, something like the buyer realizes or the buyer accepts the solar panel? You know, there's a whole addendum for the solar panel, but do I need to put somewhere on the contract the other agent put in the area where the items that are included in the house, she put solar panels there, which they will be, but they're not going to be free and clear. They're going to have to assume the loan.
You can just make a separate note that I would put in additional terms that buyer, see attached addendum regarding buyer
accepting
taking over payments, or whatever you want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buyer has to be approved, but make sure they're approved by the finance company.
Right. Okay.
Because these things fall apart at the end if the buyer is not approved and the seller doesn't want to pay it off. Obviously, they don't.
Right.
Then we have an unfixable problem at the closing table.
Okay.
Hey, Ryan.
All right, hold on one second. Liz, you were starting to say something.
Yes, with the previous question, they asked if there was an option to go directly to short-term rentals on the MLS. Is there? I don't think I've seen any.
Yes, there is. There's a criteria you can add down there. It's it gives you a whole gamut of like 1 to 6 days, no days, 3 months. But yeah, it's a thing you can add to your search at the bottom, add criteria or something.
Okay, are you guys familiar with that? So I'm not.
I'll look at it right now.
I've used it before. You just act as if you're looking for a rental property, but you can just go in there and active listings, and it'll show on like you can add fields if it's not there at the bottom. Right. You can add like the terms, I think. But it's pretty cool because I don't know when I look for rental properties, sometimes like an Airbnb, I'll look on
it's under minimum lease period. And so you go down to additional fields, add remove, and then it's under minimum lease periods. And then there's a month to month or weekly too. You can hit yes or no, but then that gives you lots of choices for minimum lease period. Mm-hmm. And if you want Airbnb, you're going to want like 1 to 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a lot of short-term rentals they call themselves that, but still have 2-month minimums or something like that.
Right.
But you cannot rely on those. I would say sometimes the realtor don't know and they list it as a 1 to 7 or don't rely on that. Just find out before you offer the property because they might be misplacing, misputting information.
That doesn't sound right. Realtors wouldn't do that. They don't make mistakes. You just look for waterfront homes and see what you get. Lots of retention ponds and ditches in the back. Sometimes it fills with water when we get a lot of rain. Any other questions or comments for today? Colleague found it. Good job, Tammy. It worked for her. You guys do know how to do those additional fields at the bottom, right? Be sure to use those things. You can search public remarks when you guys are looking for stuff. And you're looking for interesting stuff of any kind. You can search public remarks, and of course, you cannot always, rely on those, but at least it gives you an idea. Yes.
Brian, I have something else.
You can search for homes for older people, 55 plus communities. You can add that in there too. There's so much you could really add. Yeah.
If you just put the number number 55 into public remarks, it'll pull a bunch of them up for you.
But that's an extra field you can add too. Housing for older people. You can put that and hit yes and get it.
Yep, and you only miss out on the agents who don't enter stuff right. So
exactly correct.
You only miss half of them.
Yes, you do.
Angie, you were talking.
Yeah.
Oh, you have your hand up. I can see it.
I did. I follow directions. Okay, so I have a bunch of listings that an investor gave me of properties that they flipped and I've listed on the market for them. They're all over Florida. So if anybody's interested in promoting these listings, they're welcome to promote themselves by using these listings. It's fine with me. Also open houses, if anybody's looking for open house opportunities. None of them are right in Orlando. They're all kind of on the outskirts, a few in Deltona, Mount Dora, I have one, Bradenton and Fort Myers over here on the West Coast, Leesburg, Venice Beach, Sarasota, and I have quite a few in Jacksonville. If anybody knows any good Jacksonville agents, is there any with FRI, Ryan?
Yes. Yep. I'll introduce you.
Yeah, great. Because they're giving me quite a few listings over there in Jacksonville, and I have them on the Jacksonville board now. But I'm looking for agents to give buyer leads to in that area and to hopefully host open houses for me. So if anybody wants to promote those, please go for it. Some of them are selling good, some of them are a little bit priced high, and might be taking a while. So, but they're there.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. You want to put your email, Angie, so they can contact you, or however you want them to contact you. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Hey, are there any new agents in here? I see some new faces that I don't recognize.
New agents in what? In what?
Yeah, that's joined FRI. We need to introduce new agents.
Yeah. Anybody want to introduce yourself?
There you go.
Daniel's here. Clarence has been with us a short time. He's, experienced agents, but new with us. Yes.
Yes, hello,
Ryan?
Daryl. Clarence here. I'm a new kid on the block, I think a month and a half maybe. Also, somebody was mentioning solar. It turns out this month's Florida Realtor magazine has published an article that I submitted a few months ago on solar information. So check that out, answer some questions for you. And but yeah, I'm here to help. My focus is on land.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Ryan's been with us for a while. I think this is his first time with his camera on a meeting, but Ryan's here.
Yeah, I've been with for a while. I haven't really been too active. When I first joined, I was going back to business school. I served in the military for 8 years in the Air Force. I'm over at Patrick Air Force Base. I'm in Melbourne currently. Finished business school last year, and so now I'm just kind of working in finance and doing real estate kind of part-time.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hoorah.
There you go. I think that's it. Daryl, I'm sorry that I haven't run all these new agents by you. That's supposed to be part of our checklist when they join. But I'll start getting your approval on everybody when they come in. All right. Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for a great meeting. We'll see you next week. I have something equally as exciting, I'm sure. And any other questions in the meantime, you can hit me up or whatever. Angie's information is in the thing now if you want to talk to her about those listings. And appreciate you guys. See you next time. Bye, everybody.